Okay, I'm sharing my screen on the Zoom session. You should be able to find it. See if you can get in there. So you know how it works. Done the right thing here. Not that attendance in the front is no problem, but don't forget to sign in or back in case there is a mistake that comes to you. Try to get it also, but it's easy to make a mistake. Programming fun, yay! Okay. More people than that were signed in.
I mean, it says completed, right?
Fast. How about yours?
I was actually a little longer stay.
Yay! Think you're feeling better? Yay! Yes, sir. Is it the one where it tells you to go ahead and click submit if you need to?
Yeah.
So just go ahead and click submit. Don't worry about it. The next one will show you how to resolve that problem. It's no problem. You're fine. It does different things depending on which virtual server you connect to. So can't make it do the same thing. All right, so this morning, come with me, everybody here. We need to get you guys all communicating. Some of you have communicated with your study groups and done a great job. Let's get everybody logged into Slack. You might have used Slack in another class. If so, great. Get logged on and let's join our group. So you want to go to otccis.slack.com. And this is an app that you can put on your phone if you want. It's up to you. You want it to, junk up your phone, that's fine. But if you want to get messages, you can. And we use this for a lot of different things. Whenever you get onto Slack, you'll see it's just kind of a messaging platform. So you can send, file attachments and images and things like that. But you basically are working with all of these different channels. So OTC CIS is kind of our area, our group, and you have to have an OTC email address to be able to join that OTC CIS Slack station. So you don't have to worry about people from outside of OTC joining. Once you've joined, then there are a bunch of different channels, and you can join or watch different channels. The one I want you to join for our class is Riley CIS150 SP19. After everybody gets joined, I'll make it private where nobody else can see it. And that means if you guys message each other, nobody else will see your messages. And I'll turn it off. So you'll have to DM me if you want me to look at a message. But that way you guys can talk amongst yourselves and not worry. Yes, sir. How do we find it? Whenever you log on to the otccis.slack.com, create your account, and then how do you find channels?
It's not there.
It shows you all of them, changes all the time. Thank you guys. Now the other ones that you want to try to find, besides the Riley CIS 151, some really good ones are job postings. So if you're interested in finding out about internship opportunities as well as job opportunities, Dr. Ford hears from people all over the area that are looking for people, and she always posts everything that she hears to that job posting channel. So if you're saying, well, I don't hear about these things other people hear about, right here, this is how and why. So I don't use it on the desktop, I use it on my phone. And even with all these different channels, there's not a lot of notifications usually. Now another one that's good is degree questions. If you want to search for it, in this one, you'll see it's not real active. There haven't been questions for a really long time, but if you do have a question, Dr. Ford usually will respond right away, or one of myself or one of the other instructors, but it's nice to have that direct link to Dr. Ford, you know, the department chair, in case you have a question that needs to go to her. Now, another one that is really good is upcoming events. And this is the one that can get you some extra credit, because I have that extra credit assignment for if you attend any sort of networking event. Well, all of these are pretty much networking events. So to get those bonus points, I want you to take a selfie at the event and then post it to that assignment, and I'll give you bonus points at the end of the semester. But there are a bunch of great opportunities. This one, this Consortium for Computing Sciences in Colleges, Central Plains, is a new post, and it's an event somewhere north of here. I don't know if it's in Nebraska or Kansas City, but you can find out all about it at this website, and Dr. Ford would probably have a van or a bus or something that goes to that event if there's enough people that are interested. So those kinds of things are bigger than just meetups, but it also will list those kinds of meetups that we have in Springfield all the time. So if you scroll back, you'll see so lots of different things going on around town, and all of them are great opportunities for you guys to meet people. The other ones that are out here, the other channels, there's just general ones like for C# programming, and that one has a question in it or a comment. If you notice right now, that's why I have that badge lit. And that channel is more specific for, or general, I should say, for everybody that has C# classes. And some of the people that have graduated and are working, that have been out of school for a few years, still stay on that channel, and they'll hop in and help you guys and answer questions and make you wish that they hadn't, because sometimes they get really involved. But that's all for Slack. Questions about Slack? Does it work for everybody? Do you see it? And again, it's just totally up to you. Now, we also have a CPU Club Facebook page, so if you're more of a Facebook person, you can use it. But Dr. Ford actually seems to be posting more to the Slack channels here lately, so that's the best place to find things out. So yay. So Zoom, we got zoomed in, and we're looking at Slack, and the next thing I wanted to show you is OneNote. So OneNote is an Office product. It's one of the products that got installed on your computer at home for free if you installed Office from your OTC email account. If you didn't, you can. Just go to office.com. And Office is separate from the Microsoft Imagine account you have that lets you download Visual Studio. And that Microsoft Imagine account, the other day someone was laughing about it and said that they'd gone ahead and downloaded all the software that's available. And I was kidding them. I said, yeah, someone in this class, I heard them last week talking about their Minecraft server that they had running on a flash drive, and they didn't know how old version of Windows Server they were running. Well, go to Microsoft Imagine, download the newest version of Windows Server, get it all updated, because you've got access to all of that stuff for free with your Imagine account. But your Office.com account gives you access to all the Office products. So if you've downloaded them at home, you're all set. If you haven't and you want to, you can. All you have to do is sign in. And when you click on the sign in, you're going to use your OTC account. And then you should see all of the stuff that's available to you. Now, when you log into your OTC account, you should have this Install Office button. So whatever computer you're using, you could download and install Office. Don't do it on these, please, because we've already got Office installed. But you're going to have a limited number of installations somewhere in your profile page. It tells you that, and it tells you what computers you've installed on. But I just wanted you to get logged on to Office.com. The way our network works here at OTC, seems to work best if you log in through office.com this way. Now that you've got logged in, let's just close this window. We don't even need this web browser open anymore, but we're still logged in to Office. So now when we run OneNote, we should be able to save to our OneDrive on office.com, and that means you'll be able to get to this OneNote file from home. So I've got everything closed. I'm going to go to my Start menu and find OneNote.
It's asking me to sign anything.
You probably hit no when it asks you to say something.
I clicked yes.
We'll try it again. Now, whenever you get to OneNote, we're going to create a new file. So I want you to use your File menu and choose New. And then we should all be, hopefully, at a screen somewhat like this. Make sure everybody can get there because it is huge with the login. Definitely, definitely. Yeah, you got to do it on that web office.com. It should. It won't let you go.
Oh, OneNote. You know, I would have OneNote for years.
No, you can't.
Oh, yeah, I already have OneNote. There we go.
It's like it knows you logged on, but it doesn't, and the network won't let you log on, and the desktop, did you craft it as busy group? Okay, how's everybody doing? You see that login screen? Or the file new screen? We want to put this thing on our OneDrive, and I think you want to use your Ozarks Technical Community College OneDrive, because that's the one that we just tried to connect to logging on. Now on my OneDrive, I have a lot of different files. I could click Browse. Eventually. And I have this folder for OneNote notebooks. And I want to create it inside that folder because these OneNote notebooks contain a lot of information. So they're not easy to move. So once you get it created, it can be kind of, you have to go through a process to move it. Is it letting you get to your OneDrive okay? All right, if it's getting your OneDrive okay, let's create our notebook CIS150 SP19 and create. Now it asks you if you want to share. You don't need to, just say not now. Now my OneDrive, let me roll this up like yours. How many of you have used OneNote before? Anybody? A few. Not a lot though, that's okay. If you've used Word or Excel or any of the other Office products, you'll just take to OneNote right away. It is just another Office product, but it's really cool. And what it is like your Trapper Keeper. Remember Hartman's Trapper Keeper that took over the world? That's what OneNote is. It has everything in it. And so up across the top here, you can create tabs. So however many tabs you want in your Trapper Keeper notebook, you can create all those tabs. Then within each tab, you can name that tab however you want it. You can move them around and change their colors and different things like that. But within each tab, you can put as many pages as you like. So you can have a page for notes, you know, a page for terms, a page for images, or whatever you want, however you want to organize your notes. So for this OneNote document, I'm going to click on this tab, and I'm going to make it say something like Chapter 3, Decisions, I guess. You could name it if statements or whatever you want, however you want to name this tab that's most meaningful to you, because you're the one that's going to use it. Now I want to put some things here, like maybe I want some notes. Now, whenever you're using OneNote, it's kind of a little bit more flexible than Word because it lets you just click, and wherever you click, you can just kind of start typing. It'll create a little text box for you that you can move around. So you have a little bit more control of where things go on this blank palette. But then if you want to format things like the capabilities you have in Word, on your home menu, you have a lot of those same formatting capabilities. Now for me, I like my menus to stay pinned. So just like we were looking at in Visual Studio last time, if I use the push pin, I can pin my menu so it doesn't roll up all of the time. Now if you have a little screen, a small thing, you might like it to roll up. I like to keep them open. That's just my preference. So I could change this however I wanted. I could add like a to-do checkbox for it to make myself a little to-do list or whatever I wanted to do. It's all integrated with Outlook, so you could add some Outlook things. Now I want to create another page. So let's add another page. Bless you. Thank you. And we'll make this one be like vocab. And here we could include some terms. So I'm just going to give you some ideas because right now we're just kind of thinking about how we might use this. So whatever works well for you. Now that means that in my Chapter 3 Decisions tab, I have 2 pages. Notice how easy they are to move around, to rearrange, and change things however you want. Now I want to add a new tab, and I want this to be Chapter 3 PowerPoint. So I want to go to Canvas now and download the PowerPoint that's posted for this chapter for our Week 3 stuff. Let me find it. Oh, in Canvas, I've set as a student view, and I can't see my Week 3 stuff because I still need to mark as done the summary for Week 2. Now I can see it. Yay. So I want, oh, it's hiding. In this link that says Week 3 video, if you click on that, you'll see links to 2 different presentations. This stuff is all part of Chapter 3. Chapter 3 shows you decision making and repetition. And it's really going to be split for us between Week 3 and Week 4. So this first step, our decision making, will be this week. And next week we'll do the repetition or looping part of that chapter. But there is a lot of information in there. So let's download this PowerPoint. Decision making structures. And I'm just going to let it go to my downloads folder. And then I should be able to, can I just drag it into my OneNote file? Oh, I can, and just drop it. Now, when I drag and drop that PowerPoint, I have 2 choices. I could attach it as a file, and that would be a file linked to my downloads folder, right? Because that's where that PowerPoint is saved right now. So that wouldn't be ideal for me because I wouldn't want to attach it to that in my downloads folder. So I'm going to go ahead and say I want to insert a printout. Now when you do this, it takes it a second. It's going through the whole presentation. Thinking. So last spring break, I got to go to Vegas to a Microsoft conference, and there were people there from all around the world. It was great. And everybody was using OneNote. And I've not used it a lot, but I've used it a little bit, and I noticed that everybody there was popping open their laptops and bringing up their OneNote notes. And so I started doing that, and for every presentation I went to, I pulled in their PowerPoint, and then I copied and pasted the instructors' information from their website, you know, their contact information. I made all my notes in there with the PowerPoint presentation. So 6 months later, when I needed to know something about that conference, I was able to bring up my OneNote notebook and find exactly what I needed because everything was all organized. I noticed while I was there, everybody was doing this with the PowerPoint presentations. I had never imported one this way. And it does take a little while. You'll see it's kind of slow. But as I was watching all of these people, I thought, wow, well, that's a really cool way to do it. So I wanted to show you guys that you can do this too. So when you paste this way, OneNote creates a separate page in your notebook for each slide in the presentation. So then that way, if you import the presentation before you watch the video or listen to the lecture or however you're getting this information, you've got it all available to you, and you can just quickly make notes right here to the side. Here are my notes. Now, if I wanted to, I could use the draw menu, and I could really highlight some things. Like maybe I want to make a note about that, or highlight this other thing. And I can use all of those different tools that are available in OneNote. So my recommendation is that you use OneNote this semester to keep track of things for C#, for your C# information. Now, whenever we were looking at our first tab, our Chapter 3 tab, we could create a page for sample code, right? So if you are having a hard time remembering how to format an if statement, you could just keep some samples here in your OneNote notebook so that you can refer to them really easily and find them. Because if you're like some people, not like me because I'm super organized, but if you're like some people, you might have to look through a bunch of different files to find what you're looking for. But if you just paste that code here in OneNote, then you'll have it. So let's try it. Can you find your .cs file for your Hello World program? Now me, I think that I put mine on my H drive. How about you? Remember I was saying, oh, you could put it wherever you wanted. So mine is on my H drive. Did you find it? Good. And I think I have my CIS150 folder, and I made an SP19 folder that I put that project in. Now, whenever I look at a Visual Studio project like this, I see the folder because that's the solution, if you remember. Now, when I open that folder, I'm going to see pretty much a duplicate of the folder with my solution file. And remember, the solution file, the .sln. Why am I seeing that .sln? Are you seeing that .sln on your view? Huh? See where I'm seeing that .sln? It's important. As a developer, you need to always know exactly what type files you're looking at. So if you're not seeing that file type, click on your view and check that you want to see file name extensions and you want to see hidden items. Because as a programmer, as a developer, you need to know exactly what you're looking at. You don't want these things hidden from you like you're some common user. Yes, sir.
Mine's smaller there.
You check them?
The Visual Studio.
Refresh. There's it. .cs.exe.
What about .sln?
Not in that folder. Go up one. Good question. Because you're a folder down, aren't you?
It's still not there. I don't think.
Look around for it. See what you can find. Now, if you don't find your SLN file at all, that means you didn't save your project. You didn't do a save all, and it didn't save that file. Now, you can still open your project, and Visual Studio will figure it out for you, especially right now since it's a super simple project, but in the future, it could cause you trouble. So do make sure that you have it, because if you don't, we had a save problem. Now, I want to go into the actual Hello World folder beside my solution file. And I see 3 folders in there. Within that project folder is my CS file. This is the file you're going to, are you guys Do you need something?
No.
Do you have a question? This is the file you're going to submit to Hypergrade. So you want to make sure you know how to find it, where it is. Now I want to open that .cs file. I have some choices. I could just drag it onto my OneNote notebook. Let's try that. I'll just insert a printout of it. Oh, it says can't do it. Didn't like it. Did it like you guys doing it? So I could open the whole thing in Visual Studio, or I could right click and edit with Notepad++, because we remember that we could do that. And I'm going to Control-A to copy it and just paste it into my OneNote notebook. Now, as you work with these, you'll find other ways to do things. But here's our code for our hello world. So why would I want to put that in OneNote? Well, now you have the opportunity to use the highlighter to highlight different things or to make notes for yourself on this code without it impacting anything anyplace else. So it might be something that you don't want to do, that's fine. It might be something that you like doing a lot. So first of all, I'm going to highlight my main method statement. So I'll go ahead and highlight its associated opening and closing curly braces. Now within our main method, we saw that we had all of our code that was going to execute for our program. And our code, last time we changed it to use several of the different console capabilities, like changing colors, and we wrote out our message about our app. Now I'm going to change my highlighter color to the blue, and I'm going to highlight my class statement and its associated opening and closing curly braces. And then I could do, oh, green. Are we done? We could do green for our namespace. Now, because we're using OneNote, then I'm going to click back on type so I can do typing. And I'll go to my home screen and maybe put something right here beside this namespace where I highlighted it. I could make my text color green to match. Get really fancy if I wanted to. Make it big. Namespace organizes the project. I could fix it however I wanted to. And then if I wanted to copy that, I could, and I'll put it right down here, and I'll make it be blue. And I'll say the class. Oops, it didn't take my blue. Come on, blue. So the class kind of specifies our purpose, basically. And then our main bless you. Yellow might not be the best here. Our main method is where the program begins. I'll make that a better yellow. That yellow turns blue. Yeah, that doesn't look very good. I'll just make it be like black on a yellow background or something. So we'll have our people that have done graphic designs organize our notes. Now, anything that you want to highlight about that program code or any of the programs that we do, you could do that real easily here in OneNote. So OneNote and all the other Office products, I don't know if you know, are available for download for your phone. So you can run OneNote on your phone. So if you took a picture of something, you could just pop it in there really easy without even emailing it to yourself, or depending on how you want to do things. But if you did find a picture that you wanted to add, let's say we want to find a decision-making picture. You can decide if you like any of these pictures. Google has a ton for us. And the thing about working with your OneNote notebook, you can snip these images or copy and paste them. You're not selling them. You're not doing anything with them. You know, you wouldn't be using them for anything that would be a problem. So anything that you want to do, here's one for me. I'll take this one. I'll just copy this image and paste it. And then I can have my notes be very inspirational to me, however you want to do it. Okay, so I'll try to remind you to open your OneNote notes and take a look at them. And we'll share once in a while what people have done so that we can see your notes. Now at this point, I'm not going to ask people to turn them in, because the reason that you're doing this is to help you, right? So it's not any benefit to me. I want to show you that this tool is available, and I hope that you use it, and I will try to help you and remind you to use it. But if you need help with it, please talk to me offline, or if taking notes is something that you're not comfortable with, if you don't know how to go through the chapter and make yourself a nice summarized outline of what's going to happen in the chapter so that you can fill it in with notes, come talk to me, because it's really important skill, and it'll really help you gather information when you're coding, because sometimes we just have so much stuff that we have to get. When I started teaching, I taught networking, and I had to take the Cisco Academy curriculum, and it's like 4 semesters. We took a certification test at the end. That's a lot of material. That's like 2 or 3 years worth of training that you have to take one test for at the very end. So if I hadn't had good notes, I would have been in a world of trouble, because I sure didn't have time to go back and redo all of that stuff that I'd already done. So how are you guys doing with your 2 numbers program? Good, good, good. Now, has anybody had to do any debugging with it? Some of you guys are aware of this. Whenever you're debugging, they say that it's best to help or to talk it out with somebody, right? Talk it out with somebody else. Your husband or your wife or your brother or your sister or your friend might get tired of hearing about it because they don't care about your program problems. So over the years, they've decided that a rubber duck is a really great way to help you debug your program code. So wanted to make sure that you had one before we got started into too deep of code. So come up here and get your C#1 rubber duck. You can have it sit with you however you want, but pick one out. There's a whole bunch of different ones. It's not your C# one, is it? Did I say C# one or web dev one?
What's your
Thank you. You're welcome.
What's yours? About 80, 86.
Yay. Come on up now. You have to look through and decide what you want. Bikini duck. I don't know about bikini duck there. Appropriate. That bikini duck, she was just like, being a little bit of a, you know. Now we want you guys to have a collection of rubber ducks, like you have your collection of certificates. So you can have a whole bunch of them for all your different debugging skills. He likes his plain one. That one looks cool. He popped right up there to the top for you. No idea. I didn't even see that one before. I don't know where he came from. You guys get first choice. Everybody else will just have to take your leftovers. Pirate? I think he's a pirate.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm just getting back into it.
Great, so we have some docs now. Everybody's ready to do their debugging. I don't know what. Oops, there it goes. You guys want to do with your docs. So chapter 3, again, has a lot of information in it for you. I'd like to refer to page 64. So if you don't have your book, that's all right, or if you don't want to get it out, that's all right, because I'm going to just bring it up here on the screen and we'll take a look at it. A lot of the information in the chapter, you guys have already experienced a little bit, because they do talk about getting input from the console and outputting to the console. So there's some information there that you've already seen. There's some other information that you haven't seen. So here they're talking about just doing some basic I/O, but here's a program that is closer to the two numbers thing, where we had to ask for some information and decide, make a decision based on it. This one doesn't make any decisions, but it just writes some things out. So I want you to start Visual Studio, create a new project, and let's create this code. I'm gonna make sure everybody can do it. So what kind of project will this be? Console app, exactly. And we want it to be the .NET framework.
What should we call it?
What do you think? How about CH3 get user data for chapter 3?
You want us to write the code that's on there?
Yes.
Well, let's go. No, I'm not aware. Just all in dust. So you're gonna put all of that within your range. So just you can go on and check.
That's what I did.
Like that.
All right, so we're kind of ignoring this get user data, and we're going to put all this code within our main. Everybody's doing great.
I'm done.
Okay, so help me with it. I'm going to open Visual Studio. I want to create a new project. New project. Made it a console app. Chapter 3, get user data. And then I'm going to move this off the screen and just type all that real fast. Maybe. So in your REPLs, which stands for like, I don't know, read, execute, print, loop. That's what REPL stands for. That's why it's got that name. In your REPL, you saw something that would allow you to not have to type this word console for all of these console statements. Can you tell me what that was so I could use that so I wouldn't have to type that word console all the time?
Static.
Using
Static.
static system.console, right. So if we put that static using clause in, then we didn't have to type that word console with its associated dot everywhere, because now the console class has been pulled into our program. So I'm going to keep going here and just leave that word right. You can see most of it. So we're prompting for two things. What variable are we using to store the name, username? I'm getting that in there. Okay, so then I'm going to change the echo color. Now, if you have yours already coded, start testing and see if it's all working. Do you have any syntax errors that you need to fix? Or is everything working perfect? Yes, sir?
Do you still have to define console and change these colors?
Well, you don't need it any place. It's by itself before the period. But you do need it in those other ones like console color that don't have the period. Now, what was it that I had to do to make this stay? Oh, this one I have to put that. If I run this right now, it just flashes. It'll let me enter my data. There's my name and my age, but then it just goes away. How was it that we got it to stay? Control F5 and the read key, both. So I'm going to try Control F5 first. It's going to prompt me for my name, my age. I'll make something up. Now it's got my font color changed like I wanted, and everything looks great. And the operating system added the press any key to continue message for me. I'll go ahead and put in the read key statement.
I just said that input string is not in the correct format.
We'll have to look at that. Okay, so then when I have the read key statement, it just outputs my message and doesn't give me any other sort of information at the end. So here's our code where we've gotten everything to be dependent upon our console class, but we've eliminated the need to put that console keyword in because we pulled in that console class using our static using clause. So today we wanted to kind of start looking at some if statements. So let's look at what each line of code does here, and then we'll put in an if statement. The lecture for decision making is on Canvas posted in that video. So we're not going to go through that during class. In class, we want to do some hands-on things and stuff like that. So take a look at that on your own. Make sure you've watched it. It gives you a lot of good information about how to format your if statements in C# and what the different available formats are and all that kind of stuff. So let's put something in here ourselves after we've taken a look at this code. First of all, our first 2 lines of code, prompt for the username and read the username. Why do we use a read line instead of just a read? What would happen? Try it.
It would only read the first letter, I think.
Let's try it and see that you're right. Is read a thing? Read key a thing? Now, notice how we've lost that capability here. Whenever we were typing the keyword console, specifying that we wanted to use the console class, when we put the dot, that IntelliSense editor would do the drop down of all those available method names, and we would see read key, read line, and we knew exactly what was available. Since we've made the console classes static using, we lose that capability, which is okay, but notice it's kind of a trade-off. So we don't have to type that keyword console, but we are losing the drop down for it. So it doesn't like my read key either. It says that you can't do a read key statement because it's not going to automatically convert it to a string. And I'm trying to read whatever the user types into a string. So even if I did just want 1 keystroke, I wouldn't be able to read it into a data variable that was set up as a string. So I'll change the spec to read line. Now, while we're looking at that, that brings up all of the information about creating variables. In chapter 3, there's some great info for you about data types, the different types of data we can use in C#, how to declare variables, and how to use them. This line of code sets up a string type variable named username and initialize it with whatever value we get from our read line. Yes, sir?
I was having trouble.
Oh, okay. Now I'm going to get to it. So whenever we are reading that in, we're reading it into that variable. So whenever we're using C# to declare a variable, which we have to do, it's not like Python. It doesn't automatically decide how to set up this variable. C# wants to know what type is this variable, what data type is it, and we have to be really specific about telling it. So string is one of our data types that we can use. So to declare a variable, we always have data type followed by the variable name. That's the minimum amount we need to declare a variable. After that, we can assign a value to that variable if we want to on the same line of code, or we can just continue on. So here we've got 2 variables that we're reading in. Then we do 2 statements to alter the state of the console, like what state it's in, what color it is. Then we output a line to the console. When we're outputting this line, we have a lot of information here. We're using a write line command. Up here, we just use a write command. Did you notice a difference between the 2? Can you tell the difference? Run it again to see if you can tell what the difference is.
For input.
We usually use the write for input, and if you notice, the write leaves the cursor sitting on that same line. So when the user types, they're still on that same line. So write does not move down a line. When we do the write line statement, then we see that our cursor ends up on the next line. So it's ready to do some things down there. So that can really mess with you with some of the hypergrade expected output. So be careful. Write does not go down to a new line, and write line does. Now, this write line statement has some interesting things. Notice the curly braces with the numbers, and Visual Studio has them highlighted with the bright green. These are parameters.
You should still use a right line for input, or do you only want to use right?
You could still use the right line, but then the cursor would be sitting on the next line for them to type. So it's just a change in how it would look, but you could try it. So here we have these parameters, parameter 0, parameter 1. So our right line statement wants to output a string to the console. We saw that last time with our Hello World program. We're going to write this string out to the console. But when we add these parameters, we're saying, I need you to put some variable data into this string that's written out to the console. So for parameter number 0, I would like that replaced with the username variable value. And for parameter 1, I'd like it replaced with the user age value. What would happen if we switched them? Can we put 1 and 0? Try it. So notice the 1 and the 0 have to do with the order of those variables that we put them in. So we can change it up however we want. So each variable or each parameter is just the next sequential number. And then after our string ends, we put a list of all of the variables that we want to use for those replacements. Okay? So we can have as many as we want. Then we restore our color. So again, if you want to copy this code into OneNote and put some notes out there as to what the different lines of code do, you can do that. Because we're just going to make things a little bit more complicated. So let's put our first if statement in. So what I'd like to do is add something here to our output. I'd like to say something about whether or not they're old enough to vote. Let's do that. You want to? So after we output their information, we could add an if statement. So I'm going to put a comment here. This is a decision-making statement. And in C#, our if statement is really simple. It starts with the keyword if. So we don't have anything fancy or unusual. But just like any other programming language, when we're working with an if statement, we have to have a condition, like if the sky is blue, if the stoplight is red, if it's snowing or whatever. So our condition is something that's going to evaluate to true or false. And in C#, the condition has to be within parentheses. So it's very particular about that, and it won't acknowledge your condition at all if it's not within parentheses. So we could say something like, if the user age is greater than, what do we say, greater than or equal to 18. Now, right away, I've got an error, right? Because it says that you've got this string, and we can't figure out greater than or equal if we've got a string. So we could do some other things here. Let's create a variable that's an integer. I'm going to put it right above this. I'll say I want to create a variable that's an integer, and I'll call it num age. And I want to set that equal to our user age, whatever age the user input. Why do I have to do that? That's silly. Yes, sir?
To convert it to an integer because integers and strings can't mix like that.
Exactly. We have to say what he input was a string, but we want to use it as an integer. And we're still having an error because C# will not automatically convert a string to an integer for us. We have to force it to happen. Now, there are lots of ways we can force that to happen. The easiest way is to cast it. And to do a cast, I just put a data type within parentheses before a variable name. Are you going to let me do that? Now it's griping at me and saying, no, you can't do that. Well, it made me a liar, so we'll have to convert it. So I'm going to use the convert class. And I want to convert it. My IntelliSense isn't working. Come on, you silly thing. I think I want to go to int32. Let's check. What would be the right syntax there? I'm going to bring up a Google screen, and let's say I want a C# convert to an integer. That's a simple enough thing. So I see all sorts of different places I could look to find it. When you're searching for help on Google, you know, Google comes up with this little best result screen now, and oftentimes that's really helpful. A lot of times you can almost see the code you need just within that preview, and you don't even need to go to another site. Another thing to be aware of is whenever you see something that's at docs.microsoft.com, that's coming from the Microsoft website, the official documentation. So that's going to be a lot more official of an answer than something else you might run into. But I can take this here. This is going to work for me. I just need 2 int32, but it looks like the T needs to be capital. So I want to convert this to an integer, and what I want to convert is the user age. So sometimes in C# and lots of other programming languages, if you look at the line of code and you kind of read it backwards, sometimes it can be more meaningful. So if I look at this line of code, I kind of will start over here and say we're working with user age, and we want to convert it to an integer, and then it's going to be placed into the numeric age variable, which is declared as an integer. So if you read backwards like that, sometimes it helps with C# because we get everything headed that direction. So now in my if statement, instead of using my string variable, finally, I can use my numeric variable. Right off the bat, is like C# going to be that picky? Yes. Now, there are lots of reasons. It's an older language, right? How old is, if you've used Python, Python was invented in the 90s or something, it might be younger than some of you guys. And C# is not, it's an older language. But it also runs much faster. So remember, whenever you're talking about that better execution speed, that comes from the language not having to figure out these kind of details as it's running. These kinds of details have already been figured out for it, so it can run much quicker than if it has to make all these decisions on its own at runtime. So strongly typed, that means that C# is very picky about what data type every variable is, and very picky about how it's going to let us use that. So our if statement, if the numeric age is greater than or equal to 18, let's write out a line that says, you are old enough to vote. Now in that video, that presentation is a little bit long, that has a lot of good information, but that's why I want to kind of have you watch that video offline, and you'll see a lot of examples and ways that we can set up different decision-making structures. If I run this code and the age is less than 18, what's going to happen?
You won't run that message.
So we won't see that. Let's try it. So put in your name. I'm going to put in age of 16. I get my hello message, but nothing else. Now, if we run again, and we put in our age that's over 18, we should see both messages. What if I want to see a second message, even if they're not old enough to vote,
Else statement.
an else statement, that would work. So let's add an else statement. And we'll say something like, you are too young to vote. Now we've got a standard if-else structure. So whenever we're writing our C# codes, this is the standard way that we're going to write it. Our if statement is going to be lined up with the body that we're working with. The code that goes along with the if statement is going to be indented. Our else clause is going to be lined up with the if statement, and its code body is going to be indented. Let's see if this works, make sure it's all right. So I'm going to put in, I'm old enough, I got both messages. Now I want to try again at I'm too young. So I've got the correct info. So great. Now when I'm working with code like this with the decision-making structure, notice that now I have to run the program 2 times to test it, right? Because I have to test once for if my if statement is true and once for if my if statement is false. So as a developer, we have to always make sure we're coding for every possibility so that we make sure that we're testing all the angles. Now I am not coding for if somebody types in a letter A. Right now we're still assuming they're going to type in numeric data because we're not doing anything to check that or to go through it. So that gives us a little bit of work there. Now within these if statements, we're only doing 1 line of code for each body, right? Our if statement body, 1 line of code. Our else statement body, 1 line of code. What if we needed to do more than one thing? Let's add a little bit more so that we can see that. Then we'll break for lab time. So how about we say if num age greater than or equal to 55, we want to do a couple of things. I need open and closing curly braces for my if statement. So if I just have 1 line of code, I don't need them. But as soon as I go past 1 line of code, then I have to have them. So if my num age is greater than 55, I don't know, let's write something out like, you can join AARP and you have been able to vote for. Now, I would like to do a calculation in here, so I'm going to try it, see what happens. I'm going to say that I want to take their age minus 18. How many years have they been able to vote? So if you notice, because I was concatenating output, I want to be able to put this on the screen, plus this number, plus the word years. I put the calculation within parentheses so that the compiler wouldn't get confused about what was supposed to happen there. Because whenever we're working with numeric addition and subtraction, along with adding strings together in concatenation, it can get a little confused. Now, let's try an else clause for that. Now, in our else clause, let's put something like, you can save with AARP soon. Maybe. They might be 18. You will be eligible in, oops, I need 55 minus how old they are, because I think that's the AARP age. I start creating variables that don't exist. Okay, so if you can see all that, we've got our if statement with our condition, asking if they're greater than or equal to 55. If they are, we're going to tell them they can join AARP and how long they've been able to vote. Otherwise, we're going to tell them they have something to look forward to with all these good coupons or something, and they'll be eligible in this long. So we try to do a calculation in each output. We have 2 lines of code within each body, our if statement body and our else statement body. One thing that I like to do as we're getting started is label these closing curly braces. So I will put a comment here that says this is the end of the if statement, and this one is the end of the else statement. Okay, we don't want to get so many comments that it's distracting. The curly braces can really be a problem for people. So if they start swimming in front of your eyes, don't worry. It's not just you. We've just got to get a hold of them. Get them lassoed in. So let's run it. Let's see if it works. So now I should have different results, whether they're greater than or less than 18, greater than or less than 55. So I'm adding to my testing requirements. So I'll say this person is 35. They're old enough to vote. They can join ARP soon, be eligible in 20 years. That all looks right. So I'll try again. This time I'll do 55. And it says I can join and I've been eligible for a long time. So great.
Wait, what? Doesn't make sense.
That's our if statements. Now these are basic if statements, basic if statements, and basic if else statements. So let's save that. Remember, you want to do a save all. Make sure that you can find it again. If you want to copy and paste that code into OneNote so that you have it as an example, do that. Now, things that I'll be looking for when I'm grading your program. This is the program that's due next Tuesday. The gas station. Which gas station is cheapest? You're going to need if statements to determine which one is cheapest. When I look at your code, I'm going to look for those if statements to have the proper code, to be properly indented, and just kind of those kinds of things, making sure that you're following the right habits so that you get off to a good start. Some people that have started Java programming first, like this opening curly brace up here with the if statement, that can be something that's hard to get used to. It doesn't affect the language at all. It's just a matter of convention. C# programmers over the years have decided they like it this way. Java programmers use a different convention. So what does that mean? That means when I switch languages, I switch conventions. So if I'm a Java programmer that's working in C#, I'm going to do the C# style. If I'm a C# programmer that's working in Java, I'm going to do the Java style. Because I know that I don't get to make the rest of the world conform to the way that I like it, unfortunately, because that's usually the best way, and they just won't listen. So, but that's all right. Look at it. All right, in Canvas, you should have a new Kahoot or a new REPL thing. So let's check on it. Make sure you can get into it. So whenever last week's REPL should be done tomorrow night. So you still have time on it. Don't worry. I'm not like saying that you should be done with it. but we do have a new one. So this new Rebel is for decision making. When you look at that one, control the flow with decisions. Make sure it goes to it. It is like 15 assignments, so it is not near as big as that last one. Again, they should go pretty quick. Any questions about that last one? I've not received any emails or anything with anybody saying they were having trouble, so good. I hope everything's going good with it. Let me know if you have trouble. So lab time now for you to work on these RAPLs and work on your assignments that are due in hypergrade, and if you have any trouble with any of those, let me know. We'll get it all figured out. Did we get yours working?
Go ahead. I got to see.
You got it? Oh, okay. Yes, sir?
I got a question. Okay, so my practice here. Apparently I did it on PowerPoint. But I didn't save it until I
Unless you turn something in. It wasn't like it was that big of a work of art. So I think that would be okay.
Turn something in.
Just turn something in, yeah. Yeah, I don't think it was too time consuming.
Also, I want to tell you about something I guess over. I did it on the hypergrade, but I didn't do it on campus. So I did it today.
Oh, okay, that's
why.
Yeah, so don't ever worry about Canvas saying it's late. Because hypergrade's the one that's running that, since you have those late passes on hypergrade.
Okay.
You might show up late on Canvas already. That's okay. So as long as it's in hypergrade, we know it got in there in time.
I had one thing. On this is just showing up on Canvas that the week 4 assignments are actually due the same date as the week 3 assignments.
They're in the wrong place.
Got it.
No
Sounds
worries.
good. Just trying to clarify.
They are getting fixed.
I was worried about that.
Okay.
That was weird.
I'm not sure that works.
And you're a unit count but yours.
Sure, that's fine. So it's
Just about the problem with that, you're not in Shoujo, you're not in Mom. You're doing.
Check to make sure that
I mean,
Those guys are pricks.
those guys are pricks. I mean, I did some lawsuit, but.
They read it or just speak server because they got pissed off.
That's
They're
fine.
attacking all the really their command. You just don't piss those.
just tell me how long it's.
I mean, they get really bad at this. I mean, they don't respect low, what's it called? Your players' skill. I mean, I play a lot of people that are like one rating. Oh, I can do it.
You've got,
Especially for
not
We just kind of want to make sure everything.
There's just so many bots though. I just call them bots. They just like spam.
the client I respect the most on the products because I actually audit our leaders or backs.
Oh, okay.
Bugs. Yeah, bugs. They used to be really good at it. No, they're not good. They used to be.
My friend used to be there for a while. No, and they. Well, Beck said this, if like he finds out one of his player grades before tags, I'm kicking him off the coin. Each one is what really bad. Yeah, like, no.
I started when I was like,
I started when I was 4. So what year, how old?
maybe. And I played for like a year. So basically,
I'm 20. I just played at 14. For a while. It's and then finally I started hearing about staff. I got really on that British meeting of mine. I used to play on that. The Cromwell, I ended up free marking it. And that's one of my favorite things. The comment on closing it by third mark. on. It's the same thing as Centurion. It is the weekend.
They're better ones.
There it is.
84, 85.
You still respect the Cromwell of the tank where if you give with like a full Cromwell team is strong with like a T37. My favorite tier 9 has got to be that Centurion. I think it's a 7-1. Oh man, that's gone on it. When I used to be able to fire the hash route. Oh shit, I hate it. Yeah, 77%. Yeah, I wish the OBJ268 was a little bit more great. It's not a bad tier 15 store, but it's where I get it. It's big enough. I mean, it's not important. It's fun. I will give credit. Have you ever had the walking tracker E100 I did on a test server before they turned it to the world? I remember the time when we had the walking tracker with the full power rating. The one that
It wasn't. I think you can get it with work on.
I remember when the Echo 5 was a box. It was like I used to be go to tier 10 heavy, and it's still a good name for that.
They said you can buy the new piece. The ones that are like slash 1.5. The ones they say they'll be like always different and stuff. So you should be able to get them once they go. That won't be much more. I really like it.
Yeah.
Also 250 days. And I never got it. It's really bad, but it's really
Crazy. Yeah.
I remember.
So always, yeah, it could be so hard.
I mean, I never played it. I just
So right.
I never played it. They said they was that's why they did it.
I mean, even broke it at that point, like tier 5 getting in tier 5.
And then I knew that someone was sitting.
I mean, it's still right now, it's like,
It's terrible.
On a daily basis and stuff.
because like, you just get like 2 steps.
Yes, those little things like that. I think they're so yes, sir.
You're gonna
So what happens to all the things? So saying that.
Yeah. Yes, what's working to come back because there's And this is like chess guy game. You just play heroes. Doing chess pieces. A lot of
That was lots of
people actually do this. But you have to be smart. High-end all the time. That's why I have to do
yes.
some sort of there's like kings.
So basically,
Chinese players are like